It is still 536 BC, and Daniel is reviewing Jeremiah's writings that have been sent to Babylon. And in those writings, Daniel discovers that the exile is to last 70 years. It has been 70 years since he was removed by Nebuchadnezzar in 606 BC from the southern kingdom. Daniel begins to weep, and he mourns over the sins of the people. He is in such grief that he cannot eat. And he remembers all the commands of the Lord that his people have broken, and he is sick. He begs the Lord to hear his prayer, forgive the people, and restore the nation, not because they deserve it, but because of the Lord's great compassion. Gabriel is dispatched to Daniel as soon as Daniel begins to pray. He tells Daniel that 70 weeks have been decreed for Israel to complete their transgressions and to make a way for atonement, and to seal up the visions and prophecy. When the decree to rebuild Jerusalem is made, there will be 7 weeks, plus another 62 weeks until the Messiah or Savior is presented. 1 week equals 7 years. So from the time of the decree to rebuild Jerusalem until the Messiah is presented, there will be 49 years plus 434 years, which equals 483 years, or 69 weeks. After that, the Messiah will be cut off from the people, and Jerusalem and the temple will be destroyed. Time will continue until the end, and finally a covenant will be made with Daniel's people for a final 70th week, or 7 years. But in the middle of that 7 years, the covenant will be broken, and the temple sacrifices will stop because of a man who brings in all sorts of abominations to desolate Jerusalem and the temple. Darius is about to overthrow the Babylonian Empire in a single night raid. He is the viceroy of Cyrus, the king of Persia, who broke away from the Babylonian Empire in 559 BC, 23 years before. Now Cyrus has divided the empire into 2 parts. One Darius is running, and the other Cyrus runs. Back at the palace, in the city of Babylon, Belshazzar is throwing a party for 1,000 noblemen of the kingdom. He orders the holy cups and glasses that were taken out of the temple in Jerusalem by Nebuchadnezzar to be brought out from the treasury for his guests to use to drink their wine. In their drunken stupor, they begin to praise the gods of gold, silver, bronze, iron, wood, and stone. But all grow silent when a finger appears and writes on the wall. None of Belshazzar's wise men can interpret the writing, even though they can read it. It is 4 Arabic words used to describe coins that were used during the day. Now, they don't understand the meaning of the writing, though. Queen Nitocris enters the room and assures Belshazzar that Daniel can interpret the writing. When Daniel arrives, Belshazzar offers him a purple robe and a gold necklace. But Daniel tells him, "You just keep that stuff and your gifts for yourself. Let someone else have it, but I will interpret the writing," which says, Mene, mene, tekel, upharsin. Mene means God has numbered your kingdom and put an end to it. Tekel means you have been found weighed in the balance and found wanting. Upharsin means your kingdom has been divided and given to the Medes and the Persians. Belshazzar gives Daniel the gifts anyway, and he assigns him as the 3rd ruler in the kingdom. That very same night, Belshazzar is killed, and Darius the Mede takes over the Babylonian kingdom for Cyrus the Great. Darius is 62 years old and the ruler of the Medes under Cyrus. Nebuchadnezzar's vision of the statue with a head of gold is fulfilled. Daniel's vision of the lion with wings is complete. The kingdom of the head of gold has been passed on to the chest of silver. The lion with wings has passed on the kingdom to the bear. Babylon has been overrun by the Medo-Persians and passed on to the chest of silver, which has 2 silver arms. When Cyrus the Great takes over the Babylonian Empire there in 536 BC, Jeremiah the prophet's message approaches Cyrus, and it leads him to end the exile. Cyrus agrees, even announcing that God had appointed him to rebuild the temple in Jerusalem. He sends a letter throughout the kingdom to let the Jews go home and to support them with gifts With these things in mind, in 536 BC, the prophecies of Isaiah have come true. Isaiah 13 said that the Medes would overtake Babylon, and they did. In Isaiah 44, Isaiah named Cyrus by name and said that he would raise up the ruins of Jerusalem, and that he would be the Lord's shepherd to declare the rebuilding of Jerusalem. And he has. In Isaiah 44, the Lord spoke to Cyrus to say that the Lord will go before the anointed Cyrus and to make the way easy for the sake of Jacob and Israel, though Cyrus does not know the Lord. He will call him by name, and he did. He called him Cyrus, and he said that Cyrus will let the exiles go free without payment. And he did. In fact, he gave them gifts instead of requiring a payment to go free. The prophecies of Isaiah have come true. When Nebuchadnezzar destroyed the temple in 586 BC, he took most of the gold and silver dishes and utensils back to the treasury in Babylon, 5,400 in all. Cyrus opens the treasury and he gives them to Sheshbazzar to take back to Jerusalem. Sheshbazzar is Zerubbabel of the Old Testament. The leaders of the people who returned to Jerusalem are Zerubbabel, Jeshua, a man by the name of Nehemiah, Seraiah, Mordecai, Bilshan, Mizpar, Rehum, Bahanah, and many others. The rest of the men are all numbered by the towns that they came from. 42 towns are mentioned. The priests are numbered by their heritage. 4 family groups are mentioned. The Levites, the temple servants, are also numbered by families. 57 groups are listed. There are 42,360 people who return, not including the 7,337 servants, the 200 singers, as well as the 736 horses, 245 mules, 435 camels, and 6,720 donkeys. Now back in Jerusalem, all the temple offerings are collected, and there are 61,000 drachmas of gold, 5,000 minas of silver, and 100 priestly garments. All the people return to their home cities, and they begin to rebuild. Sadly, some of the people do not know their ancestry, about 652 in all. Some of the priests cannot prove their heritage either, so they are not allowed to serve until they can stand before the Urim and the Thummim to be approved or rejected. It has taken until the 7th month of 536 BC for all the people to settle into their cities. And on the first day of the 7th month, all the people gather in Jerusalem to set up the altar and to restart the sacrificial system that was put in place by Moses. The Samaritans who live around them are trying to stop them, and they are afraid. The altar is restored and the offerings begin. It is also the week of the celebration of the Feast of Booths. They also placed and paid for an order of wood to be delivered to Joppa with the Tyrian people, wood from the cedars of Lebanon. Now Zerubbabel gathers the Levites and puts them in charge of building the temple in the 2nd month of 534 BC. When the foundation is finished, the trumpets are blown and everyone shouts and sings a song of praise. They sing, "For he is good, for his loving kindness is upon Israel forever." The old men see the first steps being put in place and they weep, while the young men shout. The sound of both is so great that the people cannot distinguish which is greater. On the 24th day of the 1st month of Cyrus's 3rd year of ruling over the old Babylonian Empire, Daniel is sick with grief. For 3 weeks he has mourned because of the sins of God's people that sent them into exile. And although Cyrus has allowed them to return and to rebuild the city of Jerusalem, and he re-inhabited the land, Daniel is worried that they will resume their sin. His grief has robbed him of his appetite for 21 days. Daniel sees a man dressed in linen with a belt of pure gold. His body is like beryl, and his face has the appearance of lightning, and his eyes are flames, and his feet are polished bronze. Daniel's friends do not see the man, but they know something is going on, and it frightens them, and they run away. Daniel falls to the ground, and a hand touches Daniel and tells him to stand up so that he can speak to him. "Do not be afraid, Daniel. Your prayer has been heard since you started grieving 21 days ago. The angel explains that the prince of the kingdom of Persia has been giving him trouble for 21 days, but Michael, one of the chiefs, has come to help so that this angel can come to Daniel. Daniel, peace be with you. Take courage and be courageous. And Daniel says, your words have given me strength. And the angel tells Daniel that is the reason the Lord has sent him. He tells Daniel that he has to return to fight against the prince of Persia, but the prince of Greece is about to come. No one is helping this man except Michael, who is Daniel's prince, who stands guard over all of Israel and over Daniel. Back in Jerusalem, the Samaritans want to help rebuild the temple, but Zerubbabel will not let them. He claims it is their job to rebuild the temple according to the order of Cyrus the Great. From 536 to 522 BC, the Samaritans make the work difficult. During that time, Cyrus has died. And also Shambrio, his son, has died. And the Samaritans take the opportunity to send a letter to the new king. And it lands in the hands of an impostor king by the name of Smerdis. He will only rule for a few months. The king sends back a letter telling them to stop the work. And so in 522 BC, the letter arrives back and the work ceases. Back in Babylon, the impostor king Smerdis has been replaced with a rightful king, Darius I, the Mede. He becomes the supreme ruler in 521 BC, and like all of the kings before, Daniel has to prove himself and that his God is the true God. When the Medo-Persian kings took over the Babylonian kingdom, they quickly pursued the world just as Nebuchadnezzar and the empire of Assyria had done. The Persian bear swallowed up Babylon, Egypt, and Lydia in its efforts, and thus the three ribs are seen in the bear's mouth of Daniel's vision and its fulfillment. When Darius takes over the kingdom, he divides it into 120 parts, and he places satraps or governors over each part. He places 3 commissioners over the satraps, 1 commissioner for each 40 satraps. Daniel is one of the commissioners. In time, Darius decides to appoint Daniel as overseer over all the satraps and over all the commissioners, which upsets most of the satraps and the commissioners. They try to find a way to trip Daniel up and to stop the appointment to the new position, but Daniel does nothing wrong, so they determine they will have to cause a situation where Daniel will be forced to go against his religious convictions, although they know that he will not. All the commissioners and the satraps conspire to create a difficult situation for Daniel. They talk Darius into building a statue for himself, and that for 30 days no one will be allowed to pray to any other god except to Darius for those 30 days. If they do, they will be thrown into the lion's den. Well, Daniel ignores the order, continuing to pray 3 times a day to the Lord. The officials catch him praying and report it to Darius, and Darius is brokenhearted because it is Daniel who is disobeying. But the law of the Medes and the Persians cannot be broken, and so Daniel is thrown into the lion's den. Daniel, Darius says, your God whom you serve will deliver you. And Darius cannot sleep all through the night. At dawn, Darius goes to the den and he calls out to Daniel, and he hears Daniel say, O king, God sent angels to close the lions' mouths. Take him out, Darius says, and he orders all the malicious officials with their wives and their children to be cast into the den. And before they reach the bottom, the lions tear them apart. Now Darius issues a decree that Daniel's God is the living God, and his kingdom will not be destroyed and will be forever. So Daniel enjoys success in Darius's reign, just as he did in the reign of Cyrus. A little later in that very same year, 521 BC, Daniel goes to Darius to give him an encouraging word about the future that will take place after Darius's reign is over. After Darius, Daniel says, there will be 4 more kings over Persia before a certain conflict occurs. 3 will reign without struggle, but the 4th will arouse the empire of Greece against it. Now, history has proven this prophecy true. Darius I is followed by Xerxes I, who is followed by Artaxerxes I, followed by Darius II, who is followed by Artaxerxes II. Now Artaxerxes II engages in battles with Greece, and he does this so that he can enlarge his region and kingdom. Well, we will study that part of the story later in the story of the Bible. After Artaxerxes II's conflict with Greece, tensions remain, and finally a strong Greek ruler arises who does as he pleases. Soon the kingdom is broken into 4 parts and to the 4 points of the compass. It's the same story found in Daniel's dream of the one-horned goat and the ram, and as we remember, the goat's one horn breaks and 4 horns grow back in its place. Now, after many years, the king of the south will offer his daughter to the king of the north to secure a peaceful treaty and friendly relations. However, she does not remain the queen of the north very long, and neither does her husband remain the king. In fact, her father loses his position as the king of the south also. Many years later, one of the relatives of that daughter who was given as a peace treaty offering to the king of the north, that relative from the south goes and he overthrows the king of the north. He plunders the north and takes their gold and their precious things back to Egypt, the south. Then the southern king will stay away from the north for many, many years. After many years, the king of the north decides to attack the king of the south there in Egypt, but after he does, he retreats back to his northern kingdom. The southern kingdom returns to the north to engage in battle. The northern kingdom loses. Later, the king of the north attacks the southern kingdom again. In this battle, the north wins. No one can beat this northern king. He will reside in the beautiful promised land for a while, and by his powerful, forceful hand, he will offer a peace proposal and put it in its place. And during the peace proposal, he will attack the coastlands, but he will be stopped by the commander, repaying his evil with evil. On his way home to the north, he will stumble and die. Now the northern king will be replaced by one from his kingdom, but he will not survive very long, but he will not die in battle or in anger. A despicable person will take his place, although the kingship is not legally placed on him. He seizes the kingdom in a time of peace. He will deceive the prince of the covenant, the ruler of the Jews. He will make a peace treaty, and then he takes over the land with a small army. He enters the best parts of the promised land, and he plunders it like no one else has ever done. This king stirs up the king of the south and a huge army, and the king of the south gathers an even greater force, but the south will not prevail. Both kings are evil. Both speak lies when they sit at the same table to negotiate. The northern king is against God's holy covenant, and he proves that in the promised land before he returns to his own land. One more time, the northern king attacks the south, but is unsuccessful. The ships of Kittim from Rome fight against them, and when he returns to the north on his way, he shows a special regard for those who hate the holy covenant. His forces desecrate the holy sanctuary, and he stops the sacrifices, setting up the abomination of desolation. He is able to stir the wicked to act, but God's people rebel. The conflict is strong and for many days, and many die. The king of the north will exalt himself above all gods, speaking monstrous things against the God of gods, and he will receive help from his foreign god. At the end time, the southern kingdom will attack him. The northern kingdom will respond with chariots, horsemen, and ships, overrunning the south. He will also take over the beautiful land, but Edom, Moab, and Ammon will be rescued from him. None of the other countries, Egypt, Libya, Ethiopia, will fall at his feet. Now rumors from the east and from the north disturb him, so he pitches his tent between the seas and the holy mountain of Moriah. There he will meet his end without help from anyone. Now when that time occurs, Michael, the great prince who stands guard over the sons of Israel, will arise. It will be a time of distress like has never been seen before by any of the people. But everyone whose name is found written in the book will be rescued from that time. Those whose bodies are already in the ground in the dust will be rescued and risen to an everlasting life. And those whose names are not written in the book will be sent to disgrace and everlasting contempt. And those who lead the many to righteousness will be like the stars forever and forever. But the angel tells Daniel to conceal up all these words and to seal them into a book until the end time, because many will go back and forth and knowledge will increase. Daniel sees two men down on the riverbank, one on one side and the other on the other. And one said to a man that is dressed in linen, who is above the waters of the river, "How long will it be until the end of these wonders?" And Daniel hears that man dressed in linen say to him, as he raises his right hand, and he raises his left hand toward heaven, and he swears by God who lives forever, that it will be for time, times, and half a time. And as soon as they finish shattering the power of the holy people, all these events will be complete. Daniel doesn't understand what's been said. And he says, "My Lord, what will be the outcome of these events?" And the angel says to Daniel, "Daniel, you go on your way, for these words are to be concealed and sealed up until the end time. Many will be purged, many will be purified, many will be refined, but the wicked will act wickedly, and none of the wicked will understand, but those who have insight will understand." And then he gives Daniel a small clue. From the time that the regular sacrifice is abolished and the abomination of desolation is set up, there will be 1,290 days. But the blessed one will see past that if he keeps waiting until the 1,335th day. Now Daniel, as for you, go on your way until the end. Then you will enter into peaceful rest. But one day you will rise again for your allotted portion at the end of the age.